Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. We're going. We are a-going. This is exciting. I can't wait to introduce you all to the guest today. She is a rock star. You probably already even know her, a marketing leader, a thought leader, podcaster, speaker, entrepreneur. I go on. Decades of experience in marketing ops, demand generation, co-host of the Forward Thinking podcast. I love that name. Co-founder and board member of Women in Revenue, which we definitely need to talk about. Principal consultant, co-founder, CS2 Marketing. Crissy Vetere Saunders, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super
excited.
I'm
excited you're here.
That was the best intro I've ever gotten, by the way. Thank you so much.
Good. Sometimes people clip that and they make that their wake up on their cell phone,
I know. Yeah, I do. I struggle even to do that for myself on our own podcast. So I love it. I'm gonna use that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Feel free to use it at will. Make a t-shirt out of it if you need to. Totally. Well, hey, I'm stoked that you're here. There's so many things to talk about. Your experiences across so many different areas. So what I need to do is just shut the hell up and pass you this thing. It's heavy, but I know you got this. Okay, here you go. Thor's hammer. You got it? One hand, two hand. There you go. Okay, look at that. You got it. Excellent. Nice. So take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
So the myth, and it's actually one that I care passionately about right now. It's one that personally I am trying to, demystify or bunk pretty much every day. And that's that marketing ops is not a strategic part of the marketing team, and they can't be strategic leaders in marketing.
Wow.
And yes, I think when you think about it, it's kind of crazy, but I think the easy way to see it right now, if you want to see a symptom of this, is if you go to any kind of job board. So in Women in Revenue, we even have our own Slack kind of job opportunities board. People can post recs, and you look at all the ones for marketing ops. It'll always be a kind of a coordinator or a manager or specialist, and you don't really see leaders or VPs or heads of. Right. It's very hard to come by, and if you do, you'll maybe see a few companies in the Bay Area or really big companies like enterprises that have those roles. And but I do think that part of that is because of how people think of a marketing ops role. I think they really only see a little bit of the surface, and what actually encapsulates marketing ops isn't very visible to the rest of the marketing team. They only think, okay, they're the people that run our marketing automation platform and they get emails out, but what do they do beyond that? But and so from a CMO perspective, especially if they haven't even been in an organization where they've seen how effective a marketing ops team is or how strategic and they can be, then that just further, attributes to the problem. And so my thinking is that actually marketing ops and as a department itself, and for the people that lead those teams, they're just in actually a great position to be a strategic leader and partner to the marketing team, and even kind of lead, good candidate to someone who could be a great CMO one day. And the reason why I think that is because it touches so much of what happens from a lead to a customer, that whole customer journey. And they work cross-functionally with all the different teams, even to customer success. And so they know what's going on for each of those teams, how they should work, what are the best practices, what are benchmarks. And so they not only understand the strategy, how it should be operationalized, but also what are those kind of key, what's the key data that supports those teams and how should we look at it?
Right.
And But I think that in some cases they, still the marketing ops team doesn't get the budget that they need. They don't get the hiring, leeway that other teams do, like headcount. They really have to fight for it. It's like, it's always this battle of like trying to fight for headcount. And then that's a lot of time why agencies are brought in, because there's a lot of work to be done, or one person is trying to manage it all, and then an agency is kind of brought in to do it, which is great for my team. But what we rather do is still see a marketing ops person really be a leader and thrive in that company, and they would partner with an agency like ours to really drive transformation there.
Right.
But it does require that the whole marketing team itself, or leadership, even up to a CEO, to really understand that this team is what makes or breaks marketing. Like, you literally can't do marketing without marketing ops.
Yeah. It's weird. What a powerful myth, because not only is it a myth, but the exact opposite is true.
Right.
And even more so, it's like, not only is it very strategic, it's like probably the most strategic, because it touches the whole journey, like you mentioned. Why is this misconception there? Why are we not educated? Why do we not know this? Why do people not know this about MOPS?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to, sometimes I feel like it's not like sexy enough.
Right. I mean,
you know,
the abbreviation is MOPS, right? So like a bunch of mops in a closet.
Right. And I think that it's very technical. Like, it can be very technical, but which is a little bit of like what people can't understand or don't know, like they just shy away from. And I think that's very much the case from a leadership standpoint, where maybe this whole department wasn't even a thing, more than 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it's evolved massively. And even more so in the past, I'd say like 5 to 6 years, where you actually have seen that whole department grow into individual roles, and a leader really leads those people. Where before, it was maybe you had one marketing ops person if you were lucky, and all they did was kind of push buttons and make sure people campaigns went out the door. So I think it's understanding that so much has changed. Like, pretty much everything we do is digital, even more so now, which is why I think you see the demand for this role go up. But I think because, like I said, the sexy part, people don't understand it. They just think we always talk about this and make a joke, especially in the MOPS world, is like, what the hardest thing to do is to like tell your family and friends what you do.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, what do you do? I work in marketing ops. And they're like, what's that? Or, oh, so you do like, you run campaigns or like digital ads, or, everyone thinks of kind of marketing in more of a traditional fashion of like the kind of arts and crafts and, kind of creative side of it. But when it comes to the marketing ops side, unless you are, a bit more in tune to like understanding like what happens, like, technically, or even that whole, life cycle journey and how that should be tracked and optimized and stuff, you don't really know. And so, but also because there's just so much that marketing ops has taken on over time too, that
Totally.
the leadership just still can have one very different perspective versus the other. So you might even have, interview 4 CMOs out there. One of them might think marketing ops can be strategic and will really align with them, and, have them run the reporting and be in all the important decisions. Another will just think, well, I'm just going to hire my, Marketo, Pardot, HubSpot admin, and that's marketing ops, right? And because that's what they're used to. And so I think from a top level down, that's where the education needs to be done. And that's actually part of what, why with even our own podcast and our newsletter, we try and target CMOs, because we think that if they understand, then that whole team will get elevated as well.
Got it. Yeah, no, it is kind of a catch-all. I remember many moons ago in a marketing ops role, and I was trying to explain to my grandmother what I did, right? And
Yeah.
and I was in the car with my my younger brother, who is like a police officer, right? So
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, Kip, what do you do?" He's like, "I'm a police officer." She's like, "Oh, that's very nice." "Casey, what do you do?" And I was like, I help people sell things online. I'm trying to like tell
That's
her
yeah.
in very simple terms,
Uh-huh.
barely use a computer. And then, of course, with old people, 10 minutes later, she's like, "Kip, what do you do?" "No, no, no, no. You're a police officer." "Casey, what do you do?" No idea, right? Like
Yeah.
it didn't stick. So what do you tell people? What is are there good working definitions of what marketing ops is, if you have that in your title, or if you own that part of the responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about this a lot, and I think it depends really how deep you want to go, but we always try and find also some analogies that works really
Yeah.
well. So like how to compare what marketing ops does. And but I honestly think that it can be simplified into just marketing ops is just what makes marketing work. Like we're the team that just makes sure that from all of your campaigns down to how someone, enters the sales cycle, we just make sure that all of that is optimized and that it just happens and it works and in the most effective way. And literally, like, we help the whole marketing team drive revenue.
Right.
And I think if we continue to think of it that way, where marketing ops literally will help us generate revenue, doesn't matter what team, your customer success team, demand gen, I think that will always be, well, that'll just continue to elevate our team, because if we're just like, we're the people that send out emails and we're the people that fight
Right.
fires like that happen, or, if we continue to stay in that like lower level mentality and talking about what we do, then that will just further perpetuate the problem. So I think we show one, we literally, marketing can't happen without us. We're necessary. And
Right.
then two, like, we're the reason how like revenue can get created. That is just also, yes, you can't, marketing ops is necessary as well. And so that's like the simplest way is, and from an operations standpoint, from a company, like,
Hmm.
I think that team as well, there's a misconception of like, what does operations do for a company?
True.
And there's so much. And so I think we fight that same fight on the marketing ops side. But for an operations team, for a company, they can easily say, like, we just help the company like be a company, like all the things that kind of encapsulates that, and for our whole product as well. And I think for marketing ops is, you can't do marketing without marketing ops, and we help operationalize basically the company's marketing strategy.
Right. Right. And one of the things that stood out to me as you're talking through the simple way of looking at it is that they own the process, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about, okay, what about a content marketer? Well, they're writing content, and hopefully
Mm-hmm.
they're doing a good job, and they're doing buyer research, and they understand who they're writing for. But maybe not in a bigger company. Maybe they're just doing content, or PPC folks, or someone who just does the email. But who owns the fact that everything connects? If nobody owns that, then it probably is not going to work. That's where you see people with 30,000 leads stuck between marketing automation and CRM. It's because no one owned the whole process. It
Mm-hmm.
really does make sure everything else works.
Totally. And I think that there's the tactical part to it too, but I
Hmm.
think there's what we also need to kind of elevate the conversations is there are like really strategic things that marketing ops can own. And I think if you just look at, yes, there's like the whole lead process, literally from a person is, hit your website's created down to when it hits sales and then becomes opportunity and customer. Marketing ops can own that whole process because they're defining how that happens, how it gets to the SDR, then how that SDR sends it over to sales, and then tracking that. And, even what are all the campaigns that fall underneath that, all of that is being tracked, but then the actual literal process of how it gets there is what we manage. But
Hmm.
then if you look beyond that, it's like the lead life cycle, the stages in which we track our life cycle, what are the definitions, how we're reporting on that, and all of the reporting structure, even from a CMO up to like your C-suite for the board. Marketing ops will normally own a lot of that. And
Hmm.
so I think when we focus on kind of the what we do as far as how it aligns to the whole company's goals. And if you're an internal person and you're talking about what does your marketing ops team do, you can really say, always keep in mind, what are the company goals? Then out of all the projects that you do, how those align to your goals. And then that's your talk track. These are all the things that we're doing for the company to meet our goals. And obviously a lot of that's tied to revenue because that's the company's number one goal.
Right. It's such a huge point around elevating marketing operations, and it starts with the people actually in it. And to your point, we can easily fall into this tactical trap of saying the tactical things we do, which are important, but they tie in to that bigger use case. And if we talk about, if somebody asks you, people listening, what do you do? If you go right to the tactical part, then that's where the bucket you're going to stay in. But if you first go to the strategic part, like a lot of what you're describing here, Crissy, then it's like, yeah, we got to start with that kind of a conversation. And then you start elevating yourself in the organization. And you know
Totally.
about the pipeline contribution, you know about how these things are happening, you know all the different touches and how it all comes together. And that's entirely strategic.
Totally. And I think the best mindset that a marketing ops person can change for themselves if they want to be that strategic leader is to really just think about the business, like almost put yourself in that entrepreneurial mindset. Like if I was running this business, what would I want to be done? Like what are the strategies that's really driving this business? And that's something that I think has always been something that really interested me. Even from when I first had my job, I literally was always scribbling down notes of everything someone said, from like PR, comms. Like that shouldn't have interested me because I was like more on the demand gen team. And so, but I wanted to know all the pieces of that, how the company worked, because I felt like in order to make the right decisions, even from an operation standpoint, understanding the whole business will better inform that. And that's the approach that I take even today, where I care about like what your ICP is for your customer. I care about what your company's overall goals are. I care about who you're wanting to sell to, what your go-to-market strategy, because that informs the best decisions to be made operationally or in marketing ops.
The details, like that, they matter. And somebody needs to care about them, because what's interesting is I once saw this chart where it showed if you optimize, like if you put like the whole process you have from say lead to revenue, you optimize like 1% here, 1% there, 1% there, or I think the example was like 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. And if you did that, those percents add up, right?
Or if anything, they have exponential
They do.
effect, don't they?
Yeah, if anything. So it's not like, oh, we only improved this by 1%. No, you did 1% all these different places. Now you've grown by 30%.
Totally.
All you did was make small incremental changes, but the details matter. To your point, all these little areas, they matter from a bigger picture standpoint. And it makes the whole engine run. To your point, it makes it run, but also run efficiently and effectively.
Totally. And I think that the biggest thing for marketing ops team, where there's endless amounts of work to be done, tons of things to be done, but the best way to do that is when they're prioritized. And party, like the one thing that we're always going to run up in marketing ops is lack of time and lack of resources, like no matter how probably well funded you are, because we are always trying to fight for that head count. But because there's just so much that you can do, but where do I focus my time? Where do I focus my efforts? Or for even my small team, or for some of us who are used to being maybe that one person leading the marketing ops team, that's definitely important where I should focus my time. And a lot of that should be tied to the whole goals of the marketing team, but being able to really identify those, or even know who to go to identify those, means understanding the whole business itself.
Now, I guess the next inevitable question from that, now I'm thinking about the lack of time and resources and prioritizing, and I'm sure some of this comes from the company, but do you have, I mean, is there a hierarchy of needs, that marketing ops, should be thinking about, the way that they should approach it?
Yeah, I think that, I think that the thing that we always come up against too, and when I say we, like I can sympathize with the marketing ops leaders, because
Yeah.
I used to work in house, and so I always ran up against like, you know, being that one marketing ops head of global marketing ops, and I'm supporting 30 marketers, like 1 to 30 people. How, you know, it, and it's
30
tough, but
whiny marketers. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. But the thing is, like, I always focused on like campaigns and anything touching revenue. So I really always like kind of focused on um, campaigns and the marketing strategy as outbound campaigns as well. And then at like the closest thing to marketing, which is usually sales development. But in some cases, for some of you, it might just be the whole sales team or
Yeah.
SDRs. And that's where I feel like if you make sure all of that's running well and is sorted, that's like the first battle. That's where you should spend most of your time, because that's what the company cares about. Like I hate when I see some marketing ops people just focusing on kind of like really small things, like you know, proper casing first name when they have maybe one of their forms on their website is not getting to the right people, or their routing is messed up, or, you know, just even lead source tracking might not even be effective. And I'm like, okay, think about like, you don't have much time. Is this really a priority? But yes, I know you want to use like personalization in your emails, and that's super important and everything, but your emails aren't even like, you know, you can live without that, because in most cases, 85% maybe or whatever, it's going to be fine. So don't
Yeah.
account for like your anomalies, like really focus on the things that matter. And so I think that just helps with making decisions. Okay, I need to, as far as like campaigns getting out the door, setting up templates so you can like decentralize that process, and then that frees up some of your time. And then making sure the whole like lead to SDR process is sorted. And then when you think about like staffing and the resources, I think you really need to get into the mindset of showing how much more could be done, or how marketing could scale more if your team was larger. So that was always kind of my talk track. I could show, okay, these are all the things I'm working on, but if I had this person, this person, this person, I could have actually gone to all of this in this time frame. And hey, these are our company goals or marketing goals. I can't meet those goals on your timeline. If it's just me, I would need this person, this person. These are all the things they're working on, and it's going to fit their, you know, 8, 9, 10 hour day or whatever. So that, I think, showing what the company's missing out on when you're trying to make the, you know, do a good fight and getting your hiring and resources. And then if you can't get the head count, think about, okay, what can be outsourced? What can I do? I'm going to be a leader in managing the parts that align to my skill set, but what's outside my skill set that actually, hey, I can pull in the experts to do this, and making the case for that, because that can be really useful, especially for even, you know, maybe companies right now where maybe they lost headcount, but their company's looking for maybe that help that they can account for. That doesn't have to be a full-time hire or
Right.
something like that. But I think still just knowing that you can do more when your team has more. But if it's only you, making sure that everything you're working on is something that's going to, you know, be tied to revenue, and just make that whole process work seamlessly. And you'll just naturally know, like, just think about, like, if you're working on something, is this tied to one of your marketing team's initiatives? And is it, you know, are all of your kind of, it's like, it kind of is like if you're developing like a meal or something, like if you're getting your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and like, who cares if you like missed a snack or something, you know, or like whatever. And so focusing on like, what are your meals that you need to make sure that you're getting? And then within those meals, you know, making sure you're hitting your macros. And that's kind of like, are this like set up properly? Am I making sure that like my lead source is accounted for? We have campaign templates. Our campaigns are being tracked properly to campaigns in Salesforce. And then our sales team actually has the process to find those leads, follow up with them, and then qualify them appropriately. Like literally that whole process in itself, if you just nail that down, like that is a huge step.
Right now I can see like a bunch of people hitting rewind 15 seconds on the podcast, be like, okay, this is all I need to get my head around. If I could just nail this. But it's so true. You talked about not trying to focus on anomalies, I think. And I was like, why do we do that? I think they're exciting. They're interesting. It's like a unique challenge you haven't dealt with before. And it also might be something to help you procrastinate from dealing with the last 30 seconds that you just talked about, which is what really is going to have the big impact. And it just reminds me of when you're talking about, when it's the meals, not the snacks. And it's all about almost like the 80-20 of like, what's the biggest bang for my buck right now? If I can spend one moment doing one thing, what's the most important thing I can be doing right now? And if it's tied to revenue, if it's tied to the goals, that's probably your answer, as opposed to
Totally.
one of these nice to haves and that's where I think we get in trouble that way, right? If we CEOs like, oh, what are you working on now? Well, I'm writing this special program that takes everyone's name and makes sure that it's capitalized
Yeah.
so that the emails and I've spent a week on this. I'm learning Apex coding, and it's like, well, how many of those are actually lowercase? I have something like 0.5% of the people in our database. Okay, so like 30 people.
Yeah.
It's like you could have just manually did that at that point. But yeah, it's
Exactly.
focusing on the things that matter. And even you had said too, when asking for things, also don't talk to the anomalies you're going to fix with the extra budget or staff. Talk to the fact that you need to meet these goals, the organization goals. Good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And I think that, to your point, there's some kind of like cool stuff that you can do when you get tight in the details. But I think also another, and this is kind of a controversial thing. I think
Ooh,
that
let's
maybe,
get
but
controversial. Yeah, let's do
like,
it.
I just hate like, kind of like the growth hacker mentality. I think that in some ways, I think it can be powerful, like what some people are doing that have that title. I'm not discrediting you if you have that title, but I do think that the hacking part where we're just kind of like putting things together and like hoping that they work. And sometimes I find that that's really tied to this like overuse of like technology in a way where it shouldn't be used, and
Agreed.
creating these spider webs of just like you said, Apex and think like, no, like for the majority of the people, no one's going to know what's going on. And you're
Yeah.
probably not documenting it because you just probably aren't, especially if you're at a startup. And that just the downstream effects of that is so hazardous. You don't
Yeah.
think it. You're like, oh, I'm setting up all this cool stuff. And yes, that is cool. But if you think about longevity for that company, or if you think about how that will scale, it's just going to get ripped out, like, because no one understands it. It's not documented. It's kind of just like exactly what it sounds like, hacking things together. And I think that some of the stuff that we get caught up like, oh, this is cool. Yes, it is cool, but like, is it right?
Right.
Is it right for the business? And is it something that you will literally be like 6 years from now, this is going to be in place?
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. The hacking term, I feel like it implies like no planning or no need to plan. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
know you gotta have to plan, but you don't really want to. So don't worry. Here's a quick hack that you can
Mm-hmm.
do. And it's almost like a silver bullet. Like if you do this hack on
Mm-hmm.
all your landing pages should have a red button because red buttons respond the best. Actually, they don't. That's not the truth. But like a lot of people were like all fixated on red buttons, and then I don't know if you know Brian Massey. He's the marketing
Yeah, that's
scientist.
familiar.
He like wears a lab coat and drinks coffee out of a beaker. Like he's legit.
Oh,
All he does is test all day long. And he told me, the only color that matters for your button is a color that's not in the palette of your page, and that converts
right.
the best. Like he's tested it. And he's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need the hack. But you know what? He's like, way beyond any of this. And this is to your point as well. It's like, what would be better? Changing the colors like 9 different times, or I don't know, making that page super relevant to the buyer who you really understand,
Totally. And
like
a good thing to
crazy.
support his button colors. Everyone for a while thought orange was the color.
Right.
But it's because no one's like, a lot of people's company colors isn't orange.
Is an orange.
Like it's always going to be blue or red or
Yeah.
purple or something like that. And so, yeah, it does make sense that it's orange because that's the thing standing out on the page. And
Right.
Um,
unless you're HubSpot or someone with an orange
yeah,
background, in
exactly.
which
Yeah.
case orange would not do well for you.
No.
Yeah, but
But
these
yeah.
hacks, you're right.
Mhm.
There is no magic silver quick fix for that. And again, it's back to like the 80/20 of like, what can I spend my time on, you know? And
Mhm.
it's not this little quick thing that's going to magically, I hear you on that. There are no magic fixes for that stuff.
And I think I have even seen myself fall into this trap of um, someone wanting something and literally like, I'm going to try my hardest. I'm gonna get rich or die trying to like
Yeah.
do this, right? Like I just need to find a way to do this, you know, for because this is what the company wants. And sometimes that is bending things in a way. And I've actually like I think there was a certain point in my career where I was like, I have to just say, I'm sorry. The only way to do this, no one's gonna understand like how it's set up. And I think for just for the scalability and sustainability of this process, we need to just keep it simpler.
Yeah.
And there's been times where people be like, oh yeah, you know, I'll have a client like they want this crazy lead routing structure, and I'm like, you know, I think this is overcomplicated. Do you think we can
Yeah.
maybe simplify it? And I think you might actually find that it's more effective when it's simplifying. Your whole marketing ops team isn't just going to be chasing slacks all day of why something got routed a certain way. And I think that's what we need to think about too. Like we think about, okay, how complex is this set up? But think about how complex it would be to QA it for your team. How much time are they going to spend just getting messages of like, how did this person get routed to this person? How did this person become an MQL? And when it's when things are so complicated, you put yourself in that vulnerable state of all of that
Mm-hmm.
happening. And I think that further perpetuates, like I said, to marketing ops team not being looked at strategic, because how can you when all of your day is being spent firefighting and just trying to chase down issues? Like you literally have no time left at the end of the day to even think strategically.
Yeah. Cause you're in the weeds at that point, and
Totally.
complexity will keep you there.
Exactly. Always in the weeds. Like, yeah, we literally can't rise above it. And so I think you need to kind of like do yourself a solid and just like think about your future self. Like, yes, you're making someone happy today, and that's going to give you that boost. Like, yeah, I did that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're going to love me for this, but what's going to happen like later when it breaks and you just like are just chasing it. Like, you're just going to wish like you didn't. So just think about the future self.
Yeah, I think that's the slippery slope or the technical side, because a lot of marketing operations pros, they know what they're talking about with the tech.
Mhm.
But sometimes I see this when people go right to the how, like,
Mhm.
how are we going to do this? And then,
Right.
I mean, worst case is when like the CEO is trying to do a how, like, you know,
Totally.
like it's not your job to do the how. Like, let the experts figure out the how. Let's figure out what we want to do. And first of all, what are we trying to accomplish first?
Oh my gosh.
That
Yeah.
usually helps with the simplicity, right? Because otherwise people are like, ooh, we can architect this whole thing. And like, that's so cool. And you're like, why are we all talking about the how right now? Can we just like get on the same page with where we're trying to go, like what we're actually trying to accomplish? And then the how might even be like, to your point, like 4 clicks.
Totally. And I love that you said that, because I think also, and maybe we'll talk about this after, but I think that now, because things have been so much focused on the how in marketing ops and the technical side, I think people have lost sight of um, like how what really entails for this role, especially if you want to lead the team. And it causes a bit of imposter syndrome. Like I even feel it sometimes. Like I know, you know, Marketo in and out. I know how to set up all the programs. I
Yeah.
know, you know, how all the systems work together. I literally know like every tool. I am not fluent in JavaScript. I'm not fluent in Apex. And sometimes I get into these points where I'm like, am I not a really good ops person because I don't know that?
Mm,
Like, does that just discredit everything that I know? And it's like, no, you know, and then I sit there like, no, like not at all. Like, because if anything, you can know how to do that stuff, but then know nothing about everything I just talked about, which is how to align with the business goals, how to create a strategic roadmap, how to hire the right people, how to staff them to the rest of the marketing team or business properly. Those are all things that makes a great ops leader. It doesn't mean you need to know Apex. And so I think, but because all of the things that promote marketing ops people, or a lot of the companies that focus on kind of marketing ops is very much focused on the how and the really cool shit you can do. Like,
Yeah.
I think that is valuable. But that's part of why I like, podcasts like this one, or even for our own podcast, like in our newsletter, we try and think about it a bit more holistically. Like, that's only one small piece of it. That's only one small piece of the pie. And you shouldn't even let it then, because there's different people that you can have in marketing ops. There's kind of like Scott Brinker has like the 5 M's, which is I feel like I'm going to screw up all the names, but it's like kind of like the different roles are more of like a technical role and tactical role, or from the Marketo admin, a technical kind of like coder, and then you can have a like someone focused in data analytics, and then you can have someone kind of like leading that whole team. And so I think when we think we have to be all of that, that's when we fall into that kind of like imposter syndrome scenario.
Yeah.
But I think a good way to combat that is to focus on like, what are my goals for my career in marketing ops? What are the things I do know? What are the things I don't? But what are the things I know enough about that it's going to help me to my goals, where I don't need to know how to do it technically, but I just need to know, to know enough about it, of how it fits into the big picture. And I think for some of us, that will give us more confidence in knowing, like, based on what my career goals are, yes, I don't need to spend months trying to figure out how to be fluent in Marketo JavaScript or something,
Right.
I don't need to be a Stanford Whiteman of the world and this and that. Like, he's like amazing in the technical side. But for everyone who is like listening, like, you can forge your own kind of marketing ops persona, like especially as a leader, and knowing that you can pull in amazing kind of technical people like that into your team and let them have the space to run with those amazing skills, but you don't have to be the person to do it.
Yeah. You don't need to be a level 10 community moderator.
Yeah.
I had to Google him. I'm more of a Pardot guy, so I was like, "Who is this sage you speak of?" But yeah,
He's kind of like the Steve Mullis of the. I think his name's Steve. Yeah, on the Salesforce community. Yeah.
Oh, Steve. Yeah, right. But I think the whole thing brings up the question of like, it's worth being a little intentional about our careers in terms of where do we want it to go? Because there's a bit of a crossroads. And a lot of us got here from the tech in the first place, right? You with Marketo, me with Pardot, and you can feel comfortable in there. But I think really, as what we're seeing, the career growth comes from taking on accountability and responsibility, owning the process, owning the result of marketing, owning the fact that people get from A to Z, they get to sales, the revenue occurs. Like, the more accountability you take on, you start just bubbling up to higher levels and taking on more strategic roles. And that is the path. There's a great path to your very first point. Marketing ops, you could be the future CMO. You're the right person to do that. You just need to start thinking at a little bit higher level. You mentioned the entrepreneurial mindset. What is my boss thinking? What is my boss's boss thinking? Like, what are the goals they're trying to accomplish? And you start elevating yourself that way, if that's the way you want to go.
Totally. And I think that, it's hard to say this because my agency, a lot of what we do is like supporting Marketo customers. We support like other tools, but I think that aligning your career with just a tool is not really the way to go about it, because what happens if one day that tool is non-existent?
Yeah.
But you like knowing the concepts or how things works and the structure and the process, that's longevity for your career. It's not just understanding the tool inside out. And that's even something that, I push myself. Yes, I know the tools really well, but on top of that, as a consultant, my value, like how much you're paying me like per hour, is actually like only this much knowing Marketo, but knowing everything about the business, how it all fits together, that is value. But also that's something that's really going to build my career, because it's not just going to be maybe taken away from me at a moment's notice.
Right. Acquisitions happen, things change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all these platforms, rightly so, build up amazing communities. And I know we enjoy each other's tribes, and it can be fun to geek out and, these user groups and all this. But it's a great point that like these platforms will continue to promote their ecosystem, but we need to rise above that and understand that the tech just helps us get the larger job done. Right. There's
Totally.
a bigger mission to, it's a great point.
Yeah.
Man, who are you? You know so many things. You've sort of shared, you've deconstructed and reconstructed back the whole marketing ops position and in the path to CMO. Take me back in time, like little Crissy days. What was it like growing up you? What were you, what were you thinking, and what did you want to be when you're growing up and all that?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Bay Area, which I think is not typical. I think even from people who are in the Bay Area, we get a lot of people who come here in troves to like work in tech. And but I grew up in San Jose, and I come from like a large family. I'm an identical twin.
Really?
Yeah.
Is she in marketing too? Because that would be really fun and confusing.
No, she's actually a wellness coach. So everything she does is actually like, she thinks everything I do is like super boring. And she
is that mutual? Do you think?
No, I think what she does is fascinating. To be honest, like I would love, and actually I have a podcast episode that people should check out that has both of us on it. It's kind of like talking through like how you can be more productive in marketing ops by approaching your mindset and wellness routine.
Awesome. Is it on the forward thinking one?
Yeah, I'm forward thinking. Yeah. Okay. And you can see if we look alike, but we filmed that at the beginning of COVID, because I think that's when I realized like people are going to be like working from home and their whole routines are kind of flipped upside down, and how we can maybe change that. But yeah, I have a identical twin sister, and I have an older sister, and I have a brother, and we have an Italian family. And I think that kind of brought me up. And my dad worked in sales, and I always attribute kind of like my dad's career to be something that really just got me interested in just like business in general. And you look at the shows that my dad would watch on TV or books he would listen to, they're always about like business and selling and everything. So I think even that alone, I always like sided myself with whoever was leading the SDR team. Like, I just think that, or sales, like, I just think that the sales side is just so fascinating. And marketing ops is literally like one of the secrets like to making sales more effective. And I think so that played a big role. But beyond that, I think, so he was in sales. And then I've always been interested in kind of, working like just for money. Like my mom was like, you want something, like go and work. And so I started working from a young age. And then, but it was always kind of just in kind of like selling roles, like, selling clothes, selling something. And then.
So you've done that kind of sales kind of side of it. Yeah. Taking after your dad. Yeah, that's cool.
And then I went to college, and I have to be honest, like I was always a great student going to, I never really talked about this, but I was always a good student kind of growing up, and, did academic decathlon and all this stuff. And then I went to a private high school, and it was like right in the middle of like a really wealthy area of Bay Area. And I commuted there from San Jose, and I felt like when I got there, I felt a little bit discouraged because all these people had, tutors and just knew they were going to Stanford and just had that path like nailed out for them. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't compete here. And part of that kind of made it so I knew where my areas like I was strong in, but I still think that it kind of, I was just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just a marginal student. And then so I went to,
it's tough being around a bunch of, oh man, like they always talk about, you're either like the rock star with a bunch of people who are less than you at a school, or in this case, you know, you in a school and everyone just has the hookup, and I'm sure there's like just money
Totally.
flowing everywhere, and then tutors and people just like they already know it. That's tough.
Tough. Yeah. And to be honest, like I think back on it now and I was a bit like kind of frustrated because I'm like, why can't I have that? But I look
Yeah,
now and I'm like, well, you know, if they have the resources to give them. Being a parent now, I'm like, I'm sure like you feel tempted to do that. So I
definitely.
but my parents gave me like other avenues, and I can't say that I was like in the wrong way. Like they, you know, they help pay for our private school. Like my parents remortgaged their houses a few times, or their house a few times, just to
Oh,
do that.
geez.
And like amazing like dedication, because they knew they wanted like a good future for us, especially my mom's who's from Italy, and she wanted that. So
Wait. She
um
came from Italy. You broke up for a second. What were you saying?
oh, are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Oh, I think I lost you for a second.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you were saying like your mom, she came from Italy? Okay, so what were you saying? Your mom was like from Italy?
Yeah, my mom's from Sicily, and she moved to America when she was 16, and then she kind of
Wow.
like was told, "Oh, your English isn't good enough to go to college," and so that always kind of put my mom like a bit like really focused on education for us, and
No
so
doubt.
it was like I've always thought I can't let my parents down, like, you
Right.
know, give me these opportunities. So, but I ended up going to Cal Poly, which is like an amazing school, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I was very fortunate. But and I studied marketing there, but in agribusiness.
Oh,
So
interesting. Like
um,
agriculture?
yeah, so like food marketing, and I did a lot of classes in wine and bit, and I also did an English minor because I love
Me too.
English and writing and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, well, this could be a backup if maybe I wanted to do something in terms of like writing and content and stuff.
And like what is
Um,
marketing but a bunch of writing, right? So it makes sense.
yeah, exactly. And so uh, I thought, oh, I'm gonna do, you know, marketing for like a winery or something like that. And that was always my goal. I love food. I love the food industry. I like as a kid, I wanted to be a chef, and
Really?
I yeah. And
Did you ever think
so
of going to cooking, like chef school or anything like that?
oh yeah, like my parents even took me to the CIA, the
In New
Culinary Institute
York?
of America. Oh yeah, or we actually
Uh,
went to. There used to be one in San Francisco,
Okay.
or like or now it's in like Napa or whatever. But back then, a long time ago, when I was like 6 or something, and we did like a tour, and I got like a sweatshirt there, and then I ended up going
Yeah.
to the one in Napa later when I was like in my teens, and it's just always been really interesting to me. But I just knew you know, probably a hard industry to be in. And so I kind of
Oh
steered
yeah.
away from like being a chef per se, but like I grew up watching like Julia Child and like loved cooking shows, and I still love it to this day. Like if I wasn't doing marketing, I would do something with food. So
You know, they
uh,
have boot camps you can go to. I got my wife one for Christmas one year where it's like a 4-day boot camp, and it's at, in this case, it was the CIA in New York.
oh wow.
But like visiting it, it's like the Harry Potter. It's like it's like Harry Potter school for chefs. It's this old, you know, stone buildings and people running around. And oh, in the streets they have crosswalks with chef hats on them, like
Oh
chef
cool.
little stick figures with chef hats on crossing the street. Um,
I
but
would
yeah,
love
and
that.
they give you the chef jacket. It says CIA on it and everything. And
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah, man.
Um,
So cooking. So
Actually, and just thinking about the one that I toured in San Francisco, there's CIA now, but the one I toured in San Francisco is actually the Cordon Bleu. So
oh
I,
yeah,
I think I messed up, but yeah, there's that
another
one.
good one
And
though.
yeah, and anyway, so yeah, food is kind of like my passion, and then doing wine. But then I'm from San Jose, so after school, I moved home, and I was just searching for like internships online, and I found one at Marketo on like Craigslist of all places.
Really?
Yeah.
I've gotten
And
a job off of Craigslist. It's bizarre. Like you'd think like, well, but then you check it and then you end up getting the real hookup. You know, you get like, hey, what can you say? I mean, but wow, to go from, was it right from school to Marketo?
yeah,
Holy
for
crap.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so, and I just got hired as like a general kind of like marketing intern, and then just found my way, like just doing like everything. I literally did anything we wanted to be done, like cleaning our marketing cabinet, making it organized, like trying to figure out like the best way to like set it up to
Yeah,
grab collateral or something, like anything. I was like, I'm going
totally.
to optimize this. And then, I ended up, my boss at the time, which shout out to him, is Chris Russell.
Hey,
Um,
Chris.
he's amazing, and he led the marketing ops there. So I kind of went under his helm. Maria Pergolino, who was head of like the demand gen or marketing, our marketing team at that time. She's amazing too. She's the CMO of Active Campaign now. But
Oh, wow. Shout out to her. Active Campaign's making some moves. I keep hearing about
yeah,
them.
yeah, and but so we just had an amazing team, and we just worked so close together, and it was just such a great place to learn. I worked a ton, and just got into the more of the marketing ops role, which we didn't really like have like a marketing ops team, but Chris and I just like, I joined him and we kind of built it, um and then quickly got like promoted into a manager, and so it just grew my kind of role there, and group there. And yeah, so that was like my entry point. I never saw myself really entering like tech, but it was hard to find a job in 2010 or 29 or 2009, like to 2010. Like it was just coming off the latest recession in
Hmm.
2008. And so it was like, if I was just lucky to have a job. And then I ended up really liking it. I just like business. I like the marketing ops thing. To me, I think, no, I didn't see anyone really interested in doing it. And I was like, oh, this seems interesting. Like you can work with so many different people. And I love touching all parts of the business. Like I could be working with the head of SDRs. I could be working with an SDR. I could be like figuring out the right process for them. I could work with the demand gen team, build a center of excellence, like build templates for them. All of that to me, I just like found so interesting. And so that was my entry point to marketing ops. So
That's so cool. What a place to start, like
yeah.
at the source, at the well itself of one of the marketing automation companies. Amazing, because then you get a chance to interface with all the other ones. But I think one of the things you were saying is like you brought, you brought you to every bit of that job, like organizing the supply closet, organizing like whatever, just
Yeah,
taking on, I mean, it's so huge. Really, that entrepreneurial mindset, like it's not about, oh, here's my job description, I'm just gonna do this. No, it's like I will do everything, trying to be a sponge, and that's how you
totally.
get ahead, And I bet you, Chris and Maria, they'll remember you and go, oh yeah, and they'll probably mention something that you brought order from the chaos to. You probably don't even remember that you did.
Yeah, our tipping point there was, I always think back on it because it's maybe part of the reason why they ended up hiring me full time, but we had Dreamforce, and
Mm-hmm.
we were we were one of like the big sponsors that year. And um but we had a small team, and we literally like had to set up everything that we were going to do in such a short amount of time. So I worked on kind of like managing our demo schedule, working the booth like all the time, making sure our prospects actually made it to those meetings,
Yeah.
getting collateral, working the parties, and doing follow-up, doing nightly follow-up,
Wow.
which if anyone on that team, if you worked Streamforce after that, you realize like we would take leads, get them into the system, already have a follow-up ready for them to go out that night. Sometimes you even like invite them to our event. It was just crazy. But it was just such a good experience, because you're touching so much. And I always laugh, like I counted how many paper cuts I had at the end of like
Yeah.
when Dreamforce, it was like
I
13
believe it.
paper cuts, because I was just like grabbing collateral, doing this, open a box, like going to this thing, going to that. And that buzziness, and you're just exhausted at the end. But I was just buzzing off it and loved it, because I
Totally.
just was like talking to prospects, pitching it just everything in just that short amount of time. And I think when you are on a small startup team like that, it just gives you those avenues to see where there's an opportunity to really make an impact, and then dive into it and then do it. And that's kind of a piece of advice for just anyone who's coming up in a company. And I feel like sometimes I see less of it happening, and I don't know maybe why that's the case. And I think maybe people got so used to just getting a job straight out of college, and maybe we felt like we need to work harder. But I do think that having that proactive initiative is kind of what a leader, like a manager, is looking for from someone who is coming up the ranks, because it's hard to manage people and tell them what to do all the time. I think a good thing is try and figure out what is your boss kind of expecting of you, but even going beyond that and figuring out how you can place yourself in a way where you're really providing value. And that can be like just immensely impactful on your career. And if you continue to think that way throughout your career, I think you'll just, just watch those promotions start piling up.
Seriously. Wow. At what point, when did you decide to go do, put your own shingle up, as they say, or create your own company? When was that decision?
Yeah. So I think beyond Marketo, I went to leading a global marketing operations team at Jive. And I did a lot of travel for that. I went back and forth to England a lot. And
How much is a lot? Like once a month?
Yeah, I felt like it. Yeah.
In the Sky Miles, were they just through the roof? You're just still traveling on them, kind of thing?
It was probably like a little bit less than that, but it was a lot. Yeah. Especially at the beginning, because we were just trying to get operations and like a whole team set up there. And so for me and my boss, like one of us or both of us would go sometimes, but we were going a lot because we wanted to make sure that that team kind of worked autonomously, so they weren't so reliant on us, since we have like such a different time zone. Seriously. And and so, but it was amazing. Like I had never been to Europe until that job. Like
really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of traveling growing up, because with a family of 6, like you don't really do traveling. No. You do car trips, and then you realize like you kind of want to kill each other by then, and then you decide never to do car trips again. But yeah, so it was amazing to like tack on time, and I was able to like go to Sicily, where my mom's from, and so
not just England, but like all over Europe.
I would just like tag on a place at the end of a trip, like maybe I'll just go for like a little bit of like time after that. And so,
do you have any favorites from those travels?
Oh yeah, well, the one to Sicily was amazing.
Sicily, I haven't been there. That sounds really cool.
It's really nice. And then I went to Belgium with my boss at the time, and she had family there, and we visited them in this like tiny town, and it was amazing. Like the food's amazing, and that was a good time. But anyway, so long story short, one of the team members there is actually my husband now, Charlie. So we had a work, it probably looked down upon now, but we were like, we were friends at work. We worked on a lot of projects together. And I was just like, wow, we worked so well together. There'd be times where we're working on, projects, and it'd be like late into the night, and we'd still be working on them. And for him, like definitely into his like morning. And I think we realized, wow, like not only we really like working with each other, but we ended up developing a relationship, and we told our bosses about it. But by that time, I was like, okay, it probably doesn't make sense to be working this closely with someone that I also have romantic feelings for.
Sure.
And so I ended up going to another company, because we actually ended up getting married. And then that's my other side of CS2. So
cool.
Yeah. So his name is Charlie. Charlie.
Charlie. That's right. Yeah.
And then my name is Crissy. But so I went to another role after that, and I was doing a lot. I did marketing ops, revenue ops, I demand gen, and I built an SDR team, and I was just starting to manage those people. So it was a lot at that time. I was getting like no sleep. It was very kind of an unhealthy situation. It was amazing because I owned so much, but I ended up it always starts with kind of like a sad part of the story, but my dad always suffered with like a disease growing up, and then complications from that disease, he ended up getting cancer, and I found out about that. And I was working a lot, and then he, we got that diagnosis, and I thought, okay, I kind of want to step back and just be able to like not be so tied to a job in one place, that I was commuting a lot. I was commuting from San Jose to San Mateo every day, and that's a like minimum an hour on the train. And but it can be, driving there would take like an hour and 45 minutes sometimes, coming back home. And I was like, I can't spend my life doing this. So I love like pleasing people too. Like I just love like kind of just doing it all. And I think in some ways I needed a more healthy way for me to set that, like me to decide what I'm going to work on instead of letting other people decide what I'm going to work on. Which is why if you look at a lot of my stuff, like I'm very sympathetic to the person in house. I hate like the kind of consulting or anything where someone's like, why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? It's like, no, I understand why you're not doing this.
If I had time.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know the lack of time. I know the priorities shifting. I know everything. So we always lead with that like empathy because we have worked in house. But, I was just sitting there and with Charlie in England. At one point I was going to go back home. And then he said, well, why don't you just maybe like try out the consulting thing? Like people have asked you. And that's the thing. Like, I think people like moonlight now. I don't know how people do that because I had enough going on in my other job that I'm like, moonlighting, what is that? And so, but people have been reaching out to me like, hey, do you do any consulting on the side or contracting? And I was like, no, I don't have time to do that. I'm sorry. And I also just thought it probably wasn't like fair to my company to really do that. I don't know why. It just seemed weird to me. So I was like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to like just make the break to do it.
Right. Sure.
But also me and my husband had an idea for another company that we wanted to do on our own. And actually we did it and we got a funded Kickstarter, but that's a whole nother thing. If you ever want to look up, it's called Woxy. And we actually had to put on pause because shelters, we didn't have enough shelters who wanted to do it. But
you did a
anyway,
Kickstarter?
It was a Kickstarter for a platform called Woxy that connects people to rescue dogs or like shelter dogs to take them out for walks.
Wow.
Because we went on our honeymoon and saw that we walked a dog who they had a program where you could walk dogs that need to be adopted, and it was had a really good success rate. And I think now, like back then, I think a lot of the shelters and rescues had too many rules where they couldn't implement it. But I actually have heard of programs that are just now gaining steam. And so actually Woxy could be a good platform for them. But I think during that time, it was just, we had like thousands and thousands of followers of people who wanted to do it. And so it was really sad to like break away. But anyway, besides that was a good learning experience as well, because we like worked on the product, built the product, like all that. But I couldn't have done that also in my full-time job. So I decided to do my consulting. I messaged my network. I just messaged like some people, and I got like 100% response rate. They're like, yes. And so the first day I started, and then it was just meant to be me. And I told Charlie, I don't know how I'm going to do this all on my own. And he was going to move out to America right after that. We had our long distance and we had to wait for his visa. And then so he ended up moving out and then joining me. And then we took on the clients together. And then that was the beginning of CS2.
Man, it's amazing the evolution of how these things come about, and just trying things. And something like 5 years later now, right? You've been doing that for a bit. So now.
Yeah. So it's been like 5.5 years, and it's amazing, like where your decisions come from. Like for me, it was like a lifestyle change, but I was still working a lot. I was still working, and I was still working hard. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start like my lifestyle company. It was more like I wanted to also choose something that I knew I could, one, working with Charlie was also really appealing to me. Like once we got into it, because we work well together. But
That's awesome. That is really cool. Yeah.
it's really rare, and I think people are like, how are you guys not like hate each other? But it just works somehow. But and I think but I think looking back on it now, I really just like love problem solving, and I love all the dynamics of a business. And so being tied to one, I think is amazing, but being able to scale that out to a ton of businesses, providing value to all of them was the extra appealing thing, and why I really like that. And that's why even now looking for more avenues to touch even more people or more companies with like our podcast or, workshops that we do and stuff, because I just love new challenges and meeting new people. All my clients, I really get to know really, really well. Some of our clients have been a client since we started on day one. So they've been clients for like 5.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been really great for that and building a team. And we're kind of a small but mighty team. But we're kind of figuring, adding new members as we see it. But for us, like it was also a different take on an agency. We've used agencies before that kind of come in and have big projects, and I think that can be valuable, but they were never always tied to like figuring out our business first. And so we take that different approach where we like to go in, audit everything that's going on in the company, interview different people, work cross-functionally, and then that helps us really get embedded with that company and then work on projects that's really going to scale for them, instead of, hey, here's your lead scoring model that like we do for all of our clients, and you're going to have maybe this lower level person work on it. I think that scales really well. And I'll be the first one to say, like, that's an amazing business model, and I'm jealous because it's easier. But we're trying to figure out now, like, how do we still be able to scale and help a lot of companies, even beyond just our ones we work on now, but do it in a way where we're still being mindful of that unique business, because every business is unique and every setup's going to be unique based on what their goals are.
Right. When did the Women in Revenue come about?
Yeah. So one of my clients, even from one of the first ones, was Sherry Johnston, and we got connected actually through John Miller, who from one of the co-founders of Marketo, and he suggested me out to her when we first started, and we got connected and worked at a few of the companies that she worked at, and we were just like chatting. I don't even remember where I was, but in a restaurant in the dog patch when I lived in San Francisco, and she said, we were talking about women in marketing, and saying, she'd talked to a few people of like, I feel like there needs to be something to like promote women helping other women supporting women, especially in revenue, because you always see women in tech, women in, women engineers, women this, but like there hadn't been something really focused on women in revenue. So our B2B kind of tech space. And I think it's niche enough where like a lot of people know each other. But also there isn't a lot of stuff geared toward the women in revenue. So that's supporting women in marketing, sales, and customer success, or kind of like the CS side.
Makes sense. So, because there's a difference in tech and in revenue. Back to our earlier conversation, if you want to be in tech, then you keep learning as much tech as you can. But if you want to climb to CMO, like it's that bigger conversation you were talking about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so I was like, because I feel like sometimes women feel like we like and I've seen it before, but women feel like they're fighting for that same position. So sometimes that can be hard, because I think we think then we need to fight against each other. And if anything, we just need to support each other to get to those positions, and know that, if the opportunities are there, there's enough to go around. Like, let's not think of each other as like, an enemy to get there. And so I thought, this is great. Like, this is what needs to be done, especially for women coming up in women and, or women in revenue coming up. And there's a lot of things that I think I had to stumble along the way to figure out, being a woman, like how to handle certain situations, fight, imposter syndrome, pay, equity when it comes to that. even like, I know a lot of women are trying to figure out even now, like, the millennials of like my generation are now starting to have kids, and they're trying to figure out, how do I blend career and, being a mom? And that's kind of unique to certain positions, especially if you're in sales or marketing for a tech company or a startup, which is super demanding. And so these are all kind of the issues that we tried to explore. And this year we've been super focused also on exploring. So anyway, it got started, Women in Revenue got started, a nonprofit, and with a bunch of other amazing women who helped be on the board. But our big focus even like now is really that like diversity, inclusion, and equity this year, because obviously that's a big topic. And we have a lot of diverse, members, but we still realize that a lot of us in certain positions that can make an impact, like a lot of us are, white, or we're, we identify as female, we have come from certain backgrounds. And I think we need to be allies for those. Like, not only is it tough being a woman, but think about how tough it is to be a woman of color, or a woman who sexuality is different than her peers, or someone who finds it hard to express how they identify themselves. Like, these are all things that I think adds on to that situation of like feeling inferior sometimes, and fighting people's subconscious biases that they might have. So our goal is to make it sure that for those of us who it is a little bit easier, not only, yes, we are women, we're fighting that's the main goal, but then even for our other peers or friends, or even in the network who have that other element, how do we be an ally to them? How do we support them? How can we be a sponsor to them? And really that means talking about them, giving them a voice. And I love that you're doing that on your podcast. I've seen such a diverse speaker lineup, which is amazing, from being a woman, not only, but also from different backgrounds. And I think that's something that we've been trying to do at Women Revenue. We're going to continue to do, but always then realizing that it's not segregating the people who are different, men. We're never talking about that. If anything, men can help us get there. And so we even support men being mentors for our mentorship group. We love when men are speaking at some of our events, because getting that perspective of how men can support women, especially in revenue, is the next step. I think it is the way that we can open those doors for us, because it makes no sense that like CMOs are predominantly men when we know so many women are in marketing. Or
hell yeah.
Yeah, or women don't choose sales because their first job is like they found a lot of, that bro-ish
guys.
Yeah, around them, and know that they can just forge an amazing career.
Some of the best sales people I've purchased things from have been women. Like it, there's it's a shame that, you got whatever that culture weirdness of the aggressive salesperson, but like you'll hear from a lot of sales trainers that like that, all the stuff in the movies, like, guys, that's not even what works. That's not what a good sales rep looks like. So, but I feel like you have a really balanced approach to that, where you're like, look, back to what we were talking about earlier, the end goal is let's first of all, there's a great community. You have a Slack channel, I think, too, right? You were mentioning?
Yeah, we have a Slack channel. You can sign up at womeninrevenue.org is our website. Okay. And when you sign up, you'll get the details to our Slack channel. We have almost 2,000 members on our Slack channel. We have about over 3,000 members total. And becoming virtual this year has actually been amazing for us. We've ran these amazing virtual events. So hitting not just the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where all of our events were before, but now we're like, yes, we can have a global presence, and with these virtual events. And a lot of them have been geared toward the US because of time zone, but thinking about how we can go even further than that for the future.
Yeah. And to your point, the goal is to like, let's elevate women in these positions. There should be a hell of a lot more CMOs because, at any given time, especially even in my own team, at one point we had to like, wait, where are the guys? We had to make sure we had enough guys in the team. I mean, women make great marketers. Like it's awesome. So, but I love that you're like, look, we're not going to exclude sources. Like whoever can help in this mission, like this is the mission. Let's all help out here. I wouldn't have assumed that, by the way. I would have thought that, like, it would be weird to have a guy be a mentor in that group or speak. But I'm glad that it isn't that sort of that weird. 'Cause I think that turns people off too. They're like, they just want to get the thing done. They just want to grow in their career. So I really applaud. That's really cool. I have a question for you before we wrap up. It's kind of a hypothetical, and I'm glad because we kind of a good tie-in for Women in Revenue. If you can go back in time and meet yourself after you graduated school, a couple of days afterward, you can go meet that version of you. What kind of advice would you give yourself? Would you give that gal there that you're talking to?
I would say that try and focus on the things that really matter, and don't feel like you need to do everything to matter. Like, I think I would always, and I've been told this before in my career, is like I would try and like boil the ocean, because I think I'd get overwhelmed by not everything being perfect. And I think you'll see that, and then also put a lot of pressure on myself to make things perfect. I think that makes a really good marketing ops person, because you have that kind of like perfectionism mentality, type A, everything. But I think when it comes down to the business, especially a startup, they don't have time for you to fix everything. You just need to fix the things that really matter and focus on the things that really matter. And that's, and kind of what I talked about, and that's tied to revenue. So I think it's, don't try and be like everything to everyone. Just like really kind of look at what really makes it a difference. And
Awesome.
I think that I learned that over time, but it took me a long time to figure that out. Yeah.
That's powerful stuff. What really matters, what really matters right now is, where can people connect with you? Where do you want them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So you can go to our website, cs2marketing.com, and that's where you'll find more about what we do. And you'll also see in the top right corner, there's a forward thinking center, which forward thinking is our podcast, as well as we have a newsletter you can sign up for. And we have a lot of short clips there too, for those of you who don't have time to listen to our full podcast. But that's where you can see a lot of what the team's doing. And then definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just search, Crissy Saunders, or if you search for CS2's page, you'll actually see a link to all of our team's profiles, so you can connect with us.
Cool.
But yeah, and then I already said Women in Revenue. Check that out, womeninrevenue.org.
Nice.
And yeah, that's where you can connect with the rest of the team. And if you like this podcast and you're in marketing ops, or you even lead a marketing ops team, like you're a CMO, definitely check out Forward Thinking and check out our newsletter that goes out each week.
Oh, that's awesome. Newsletter too. That's cool. Give people content the way they want it, how they want it.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. I mean, there's all these links. There's so many places where people got to follow up with you. I mean, this has been awesome. This has been super fun.
But thank you. I first saw your name, Daryl Alfonso from Amazon, like shared our kind of names in a list on top of each other. And I was like, how do I not know about that podcast? So it's amazing to get connected. And this is a really fun episode. Like, I don't ever go into my origin story even that far.
Sure.
And so it's nice for people to have the stage to be able to share that. So if anything, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And a shout out to Daryl too. I know he's a listener. He's going to be on the show coming up soon. So
Ours too. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Good dude. Super, super smart. So that was a fun convo. Yeah. I'm glad you're here. And those stories, they just, that's the flavor of our marketing. Like it still has you're still a chef. You're just a marketing chef now, and you can see all the different experiences help shape your approach to things. And it's really cool to finally understand that here behind the scenes, not just the blog post at the top, but also what drove that from underneath that. So yeah, for those people listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I have run out of paper. I have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back.
Wow.
Then share this with someone. Be a thought leader. LinkedIn's great for that. Tag myself, tag our rock star here, and we'll get in a conversation and we'll have a good time on LinkedIn. If you do reach out, make sure you say where you heard, so you're not a weird stalker on LinkedIn. And thanks again. This has been awesome. You're a rock star. We should hang out again in a couple months and check in and see how things are going.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll have to have you on our podcast.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to. I mean, it's so, I can't get past the name, Forward Thinking. It's FWD.
Yeah.
Thinking. So cool.
Yeah. And you can find it on Spotify, on where your podcasts
Wherever you're listening to this one, you can go find that one. You should go do that right now.
Yeah. Just subscribe to these 2 and you're sorted.
That's basically it. You don't need anything else. You only need 2.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you all for listening. This has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.